What's up guys, welcome to my Balance Druid guide for using the Emerald Dreamcatcher legendary helmet for patch 7.2. Now this is meant to be an addendum to my main Balance Druid guide for 7.2, so if you haven't checked that out or you have questions about the rotation or spec in general, I recommend looking at that video before coming to this one. Now I will be starting with my talent setup, and generally it's going to be a single target setup, definitely Star-Lord, Incarnation, Blessing of the Ancients, and Nature's Balance, because the Emerald Dreamcatcher is generally single target legendary. Now you can use some different ones if it's like the only legendary you have and the fight's not necessarily all single target, so you have to make some adjustments if you're not using the specific build, but a lot of the concepts will still apply, and most of the change will be that you have to refresh your dots mid-rotation more often, which kind of sucks but is workable. Now let's go over what the legendary actually does. Now Star Surge, when you cast it, it will give you a buff, and this buff lasts for 3 seconds, and it reduces the cost of your Star Surge by 7. Now it does stack up to 2 times, so that means you can have a total reduction of 14, meaning your Star Surges will cost 26 astral power instead of 40. Now as I mentioned in my Druid guide for Brimkins, there are haste breakpoints specifically with this legendary helmet. And there are a bunch of them, and you can memorize them if you want, I suppose. But the best thing I can recommend, other than knowing the first two, is that you kind of get a feel for what you can cast in a raid or not with different buffs, like your different trinket buffs, your Moon and Stars weapon traits while you're in Incarnation, Bloodlust Heroism, and so on. And there's a couple reasons for this. One, there's just a lot of numbers to remember, and even if you're tracking them accurately, it can be kind of a drag. And you might just forget some, or you might think about it too much and it might screw you over. And the other thing is that latency plays a big factor in kind of queuing up these spells one after another. So it's best to just get a feel for it rather than trying to memorize numbers that may end up not meaning very much to you at all. The first breakpoint I'm going to go over is 16.5%. And at this haste, you should ideally be able to fit in an empowered Lunar Strike that's with the Star-Lord talent and the lunar empowerment from Star Surging, or you can fit in a half moon. They're about the same cast time when the Lunar Strike is empowered, so you can fit either of those in. That's the longest cast spell that you can fit in at that haste point. At 30% haste, you're able to fit in 2 empowered Solar Wraths, so again with the Star-Lord talent, and if you have 2 Solar Empowerment buffs, you can Star Surge, cast 2 Solar Wraths, and then Star Surge again. And of course you can also fit in less spells or quicker spells in any of these breakpoints or any of these situations. Now the rotation is pretty similar to your standard Balanced Druid rotation. You can still keep your dots up, you still use your moon spells to generate astral power when you can as kind of the top priority, followed by your empowered Solar Wrath and then empowered Lunar Strike, and then unempowered Solar Wrath if you must to finish generating astral power if you need it. Now the main difference comes in when you use Star Surge. Normally you can cast it whenever you want to, whenever you're ready to and able to, but with the Emerald Dreamcatcher, you actually want to pull up your astral power to as high as you can, ideally like 94 or higher, but still try not to overcap too much on your astral power, and then refresh your dots. So once you're ready to start casting Star Surge, refresh both your dots so you don't have to mess with that mid-rotation, and then you can kind of start casting your Star Surges. Now once you cast Star Surge, you're kind of on a quick timer, it only lasts 3 seconds, so you want to fit as many spells as you can in between your Star Surges without losing the buff. And then once you've cast those spells, then you just cast Star Surge, and then you keep going. And the idea is to keep enough astral power that you are able to keep casting Star Surge over and over without stopping and without losing the Emerald Dreamcatcher buff. Now as far as priority in terms of what you can cast in between your Star Surges, you do want to cast the longest spell that you can that generates the most astral power if you can. So that means if you have a choice between say an empowered Solar Wrath and an empowered Lunar Strike, then you cast the Lunar Strike because it gives you slightly more astral power and does a bit more damage, and you don't get to cast another spell anyway, so you don't get to chain another spell other than Star Surge from that. Meaning it's not as important that it's less astral power per cast time, just that you are able to finish it in time. In terms of when you have a bunch of haste buffs and you're able to fit in multiple spells, say like you're Bloodlusted or Heroismed, you have your Incarnation rolling, and you're able to fit in like a Solar Wrath and a Lunar Strike into that 3 second window, then you might find yourself actually going over the astral power cap. At this point, stop casting as many spells as you can and get, as much astral power as you can without going over 100, and then just cast Star Surge, because there's no point in kind of overcapping your astral power. It's better that you waste empowerment buffs, so be at 3 and like cast Star Surge again, than to waste astral power. Now once you drop to a point at which you can actually cast both without wasting astral power, then you can resume casting all the spells you can and then Star Surging. Now I'll go ahead and demonstrate for you guys here. I'll be using the same opener. I'm going to put dots on and so on, and I will use drums to kind of show you that high haste thing if you happen to be last in at the start of a fight. And then you'll see it as it drops off and what you kind of have to adjust to as different buffs and things happen. So start by precasting Solar Wrath and then New Moon. And then putting dots on, so Moonfire, Sunfire, popping cooldowns, Lusting, and then building up and pulling some astral power. And here I Star Surge, and I'm pretty high, so I'll actually use just Lunar Strike, but here I can fit in 2 spells before it gets off. And then again, you can do it here. New Moon with a Solar Wrath. You just kind of get used to what you can do and what you can't do. And because I'm not super high in astral power, and at this point I'm a little higher, so I'm only going to cast Lunar Strike to make sure I don't overcap my astral power, which I actually just did there. So again, I'll fit in the fastest spell I can, and here I reapply 2 dots, and now I'm kind of I'm outside of my cooldown, though I do still have drums for a little bit, so it adjusts what I can and can't fit in. Now at this point I can't fit in any more casts, so I'll instead just re-pull or pull up more astral power, and then start it again. Now the best thing I can do here is just cast Lunar Strike, and so I keep doing that until I get lower and lower. Eventually I might have to, refresh my dots, for example, and then I don't have enough, I don't have enough haste to fit more things in, and then you just kind of pull up again, and get one more cast in here, and then again you go back to this. Now I can also fit a half moon, and there you see the latency between my cast actually caused me to miss my buff, or keeping my buff up, and this can happen especially if you're close to the breakpoint or you happen to have a bit of like spike lag, for example. So do what you can. Now here I get a haste buff, so I know, I can fit in full moon, I can fit in both spells if I so choose. And then, as soon as I lose that, here I'm about to hit this bad debuff, so I know I can't fit in a lot of powerful spells. Like here I don't have enough astral power, so then you go back and you start to kind of pull up again and just keep going like that. And that's kind of the whole idea behind this. Fit in as many spells as you can, refresh your dots beforehand, cast, do the biggest spell you can that generates the most astral power every time you can. Now here you see again there's a bit of latency between when I was able to queue up my spell and when I was actually able to fire off the Star Surge. So that will happen. Get used to what you can and can't do, get used to the kind of latency you have to deal with and so on to keep up your Emerald Dreamcatcher buff. So that's pretty much it for using this, and of course the situations will vary between fights. So different fights with different movements will cause you to lose the buff sometimes, so you really want to use it on fights that you don't have to move very much for, or when you do have to move you're already out of the rotation, like you don't have enough astral power. And just kind of get used to it. Get used to how much astral power your stuff generates out of cooldown, in cooldown, what kind of haste buffs allow you to do what, and just making sure you try not to waste too much astral power, if any at all, and then just kind of get used to it and you'll get better with it. So that's it for this guide. I hope you found it useful. I hope it kind of helps you mess around with your new legendary, if you do have it. And if you liked the video, please feel free to hit it with a like. If you want to see more content like this, or just when I post new videos, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask me in the comment section below, or you can catch me on my stream at twitch.tv and ask me there, or just hang out if you like. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Cheers.